Now I've erased all my grid lines, and I hope you can see that it's clean, my drawing is, and there's just the light line drawing of the calla lily. Sometimes it's hard to get rid of some of the detail lines, the grid, because it's going through detail, and you learn as you use a grid that you get rid of those lines before you draw in details, just so that you can avoid having to erase them later in between. But what I've got to work with here is great. Now, remember, we did this sheet last time, or a couple times ago, and we've got to go from a number 5 to a number 1. And those 5s are the toughest things for most students to get to, a deep, deep 5. And so I'm going to show you how to do that in all values in between. I also want to achieve a textureless values, much like I have down here with the tissue. The tissue is my favorite tool. The shading stump seems to work really well for details, right? Because it's got a sharp point on it. But larger areas, it puts texture in it. So I like to use this the most, and in conjunction with the graphite stick. So that's what I'm going to use. Also, you need to make sure your hands are clean. Like, wash your hands frequently because you get lead all over them. And also use a clean sheet of paper underneath your hand. We're going to start putting black graphite all over this, and if you start rubbing it, you'll just make a mess of your paper. So you got to keep your hand on this as you go. So let's do a little talking through what I'm going to do here. There's all 5 values. There's my 1. There's a little bit of 1 here, maybe a little bit down into there, but by far this is my 1. And it's right next to a 5. I want that line to be so nice and crisp. So I've got a 1, and then I'm moving to a 2, which is probably into here, into there. Even that is a little lighter than a number 1. And then to a 3, which is probably this and this area, maybe into here. Then into a 4, down into here, dark areas. 4 into here. And then to the 5, which is black. Now inside I've got some 5s too. That's pretty 5, right along that edge. The stem, you can barely tell it apart from the background. It's approaching a 5 for sure. Okay, so now I also have crisp edges. That's where one value meets another value in a stark change of value. Call that an edge. I don't call it a line because there's really no line there. I have made it a line on my drawing, but really it's one value next to another value. And I've just got all these edges. Then I have all these soft transitions. That's a transition right there where it's going from a 4 to a 3 to a 2 to a 1. I've got some transitioning here from 3 to 2 to 1. And here there's multiple transitions happening, some of them very quickly, but they're not crisp. Like even here, that's not a crisp edge. Now this might be sort of crisp, that nice line right there. But it's still not that. This is a crisp edge where it meets the black. Crisp edge, crisp edge. Even this, crisp edge, crisp, right? That black background is black. And so I've got to make that crisp and not make it look like a transition. It's not. It's one value right next to another one. Okay? I like to start black. And I'm going to work this drawing holistically, all of it together, as opposed to drawing everything right there and then moving to another one, drawing all right there, drawing all right there. I work everything holistically. I'll show you what that means. Okay, I'm going to start with my graphite stick, and I'm going to start laying down some of those heavy darks, which is for sure right around this flower. And I hope you like working with this illustration board. I think it's really fun to work with. Now I've got some detail here that I don't want to blur that detail as it's coming around here, so be kind of cautious. All right, we're going to sharpen up a lot of this with our 8B pencil. But I want to lay down some foundation of value. And this, I mean, that's so fast. So fast. That's why I like it so much. It's so fast, this graphite stick. If I do that with pencil, it would just take forever. And what I'm doing is actually turning it on one of its edges. I'm not on the flat, I'm actually on the edge. And that allows me to give a nice edge on it. Okay, so I'm still going to blend this. I'm not done with this yet. I'm just getting down some of the graphite, and I'm going all the way around it. Now, why am I doing the background first? In this case, it's because it's the darkest. And I just want to lay in that dark value. And I'm going to use the graphite that rubs off onto the tissue to do some of the interior work where it's a lot more subtle. Some of those transitions. I'll show you what I mean when we get there. Okay, so I want to bring some of that graphite over. Look at that. Man, love that. So fast. Okay, now I'm going to take my tissue. I'm going to fold it so I get a pretty good corner here. And now we're just going to blend. And look at that blend. Oh, I love it. It blends so well. I'm careful not to disrupt that line. I want to keep that line crisp, okay? So no disrupting that crisp line. Now down here, right, that stem continues, but I'm just going to fade it off. And I'm also going to fade it off into here. Now, be patient with this, okay? Just let it blend, work slowly. Don't try to rush it. This is the foundation of value work, and we'll be doing a lot of value work. So we move into portraiture, which is our next assignment. Same steps is what we do. Okay? So learn as you go. Now this is not a 5, I want you to know. This is more of a 3 right now. And I've got to come to a 5, but it's not going to be one pass. It's going to be multiple layers of graphite that we do. Now another key is don't press too hard. And it's hard, you're probably not going to with this tissue, but we don't ever want to burnish the paper, like press so hard that it, with this, and it's easy to do with a shading stump, to try to do it too far. I'm going to round this out just a little bit cleaner with a clean portion of the tissue to try to get that blend just nice in there. Okay. Now it's not dark enough yet. Still got to get darker, so I'm going to put on another layer. I'm never going to get to a 5 with this graphite stick. I know that. I learned that on the value sheet, but I think I can get it to a 4. So I'm going to apply some more. Okay. Now while it's dark, I mean, look at my tissue, it's nearly black, and you see how it's darkened up a little bit more in there. I'm going to keep going with that 5, but while I've got some on my tissue, I'm going to start hitting some of these other areas. And this is that 3 to 5 right there. And it's a little dark to keep going. Well, maybe not. Maybe down in there I want to put some of those darks in. I can't blur my lines out. I need to know what's going on here, so. I've got some of these soft 3s right in there that I wouldn't mind putting in. See if I can do it. Pull some of it off of there. And don't press too hard. Easy does it. Can you see how I'm laying value in quite quickly now? I haven't even used a pencil yet. We'll get there. Just not yet. Let me get some of this general value in. Now I'm not going to get too much detail out of this, and I've just got to know that. In fact, I'm gonna stop there, and with that, anyway, I want to draw in some of those lines a little bit better so I don't lose stuff. And I'm picking up my 8B pencil, and I want to crisp up this line right here. I'm going to get the dark 5. Oh, I can see that value coming in already. Interestingly, the 8B, though it gives me a nice dark, it has a hard time making a crisp line. It's too soft of a lead. So I'm actually going to move to my 2B and see if I can't crispen up that edge. And I see that I've smudged this a little bit. I think that was with the tissue dragged across it. So I'm gonna erase it out of there. This has got to be the best, crispest line ever on the planet. So I'm gonna make it such. Very crisp edge, and I'm hugging right into the white, and that crisp edge, it just keeps coming. A hard, crisp edge comes down onto the stem, and I've covered that white up a little bit. I'm going to erase that out in a bit. In fact, I think it's now. Now notice I'm using this pencil eraser. Now I can use this too if I have a sharp edge. And the other option is to use a kneaded eraser and bring it along that edge. But this is easy to use for me, and so I'm going to. Look at how that just erases so nicely. Now you're working along with me doing the same thing and pausing as needed. Now that's a soft transition going from black to there. I'll have to get that in a bit. I'm using my 8B now. And what I'm going to do is just like the blend that I did on the value scale worksheet. I'm going to start dark here and just softly work out that lead. But nice and dark right here on the edge where it meets the white. And I can try to smooth that off a little bit with my shading stump. And then finally, I try to blend it into what I'm doing with the tissue. Okay, so I don't have to be black everywhere. I'm not going to shade it in with my pencil like that. I'm going to softly go from black from 5 to 1. right? I'm not going to fill it in quite like this. I just need to give this background, though, a nice deep color. So I crisp it up with a 2B, and then use my 8B to get it nice and dark, nice and 5, and then softly work out that 8B, and then I'll blend it with the tissue and the shading stump. You can even go over it again with this, if it's helpful. Okay, nice crisp edge, do you see it? Now I can't be working on this and dragging my hand across everything, so you gotta get another sheet of paper and work over it. All right, let's get let's work on this up in here next. I've got to crispen up this edge and that edge, and then I got to work that subtle transition right here, and there's also this crisp edge right here, and I think I'm going to go ahead and get that first. So I'm using the 2B to bring that edge down. And I gotta clean that up some. Tissue made it disappear, and I've gotta fix that. Now, I'm doing what's called outlining right now, and I can't leave it like that. I'm not making it outlines.